Welcome to A Canadian Investing in the U.S., a podcast and YouTube channel focused on Canadians buying real estate with host Glenn Sutherland.
Welcome to a new episode of Canadian Investing in the U.S. This week, my guest is Mike Rosehart. Mike, I think if I'm gonna I was trying to get you on this podcast before COVID, so it's been a couple of years to get this to go. But for people who don't know Mike, I'll get him to give him a bit of an intro. But this guy is super experienced, lots of stuff to learn. So stay tuned. But anyway, go ahead, Mike. Maybe just a quick rundown, or maybe let's just even tell your story. How do you get started, how you built the empire in Canada, and then the transition to buying some in the US. And let's just tell the whole story, and then I'll just ask questions as we go, and that will be an awesome podcast.
Okay, cool. I'll try to drop some nuggets for the listeners. Obviously, I want to give them some unique insights of why I switched. I still invest in Canada, but why I started investing in the US, and what are some things that I learned that are different from here to there. But so I've been investing in real estate for 13 years. 12 years. 12 years. Coming up. It's getting close.
It's close enough.
I'm 31 this year. I retired through real estate when I was 24. I had 17 buildings solely owned. So that was 7 years ago. And then I did a whole bunch of joint venture partnering and all that kind of stuff too. So I've done well over 100 property deals now in Canada, $50 million worth of transacting at least, probably more now if I were to add the last couple of years. So I've done a lot of cool things. Along the way, I've failed a lot, learned a lot. We built up property management, construction businesses, sold that off. I've gone from huge portfolio to nothing. Currently, I'm in the phase of disposing of any flips and stuff that I had going and focusing on solely larger multifamily. So motel, conversion to apartment buildings, that sort of thing is sort of my current focus. We started going to Florida. How I got invested in the US was started going to Florida because our in-laws were down there. So I'm kind of like a flexible retired schedule. So I brought the kids and we went down for the winter to Florida. This was 4 years ago or so. And we're like, hey, the numbers make really good sense in Florida in certain areas comparatively to at home. And so that's where we kind of got attracted to the investing. And we got 7 deals.
Where did you end up landing? Where are you investing in Florida?
Okay, so we've been all over the place. I've done a couple deals in Central Florida, down towards Disney and Kissimmee area. We've got 3 or 4 that we did, or 3 that we did in Port St. Lucie, Jensen Beach area, so just north of West Palm Beach on the east side. And then we currently have a 16-unit apartment building / motel on the beach in Daytona Beach.
Ooh, nice. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's awesome. So, I was going to ask something else, and I totally went out of brain part. But anyway, no, that's awesome. Florida. Tell me about this. Why Florida? Why? What strategy you're using? That's the question I was going to ask you. You flipping these? You holding these? I guess the hotel you're obviously holding, but the other ones, what were you doing with those?
Yeah. So market conditions have changed, which is part of why we were doing the Airbnb strategy. So we did a few flips too. That's not true. We tried a little bit of everything. I've dabbled with some flips. We bought a mobile home. And we renovated the whole thing and flipped it. We've done, we bought a house with some land on it, and redid that, and we bought a couple flips and redone those. They ended up being flips, but they weren't intended to be when we got into the 2 flips, actually. They were supposed to be Airbnb properties, but I noticed the price was still good. Canada's tanking. Interest rates are all-time highs. I'm like, let's just cash this out. We're sitting on $100,000 in equity here. Let's take it and move it into a hotel or something bigger. So just a shift in focus was kind of what got us to sell a couple of them. But I like to experiment. So I try little things, and if they work well, then I go deeper. And so that's sort of what I've been doing in Florida. And the thing that I like about Florida is that, well, 1, the numbers seem to make pretty good sense. 2, I like that I was there in the winters. And so initially it was I wanted something to do, and I was bored, but I didn't have projects. So I created some projects in the area and get something to do, make some money. But there's so many different strategies that can work in the US. I like in the US to get long fixed rate mortgages too, 30-year fixed rate mortgages. That's huge, right? They're not feeling the same pain that we are. There's a nugget right there. If you're looking at risks, the risk adjusted returns in Florida are much better because most people have a 30-year fixed rate mortgage at 3-4%, and most of them are assumable. There's even websites that specifically, you can go and find properties, hundreds of them, that all have 2 and 3% rate mortgages, and you can buy those properties. So you can walk into a property with an $800 a month mortgage payment that'll rent for $3,000 a month. And you can't do that in Canada. The mortgages are not assumable in the same way that they are in the US and Canada. And so the whole mortgage environment keeps it in a way that there's just less risk. And so the returns can be comparable to Canada, but the risk-adjusted returns are much better in the US. And I mean, I just picked up a 23-unit building in Sarnia, Ontario too. So I'm still doing deals here in Canada that make sense. It's just, I don't know. For me, I like both markets.
Well, you're bringing up a lot of stuff about the multifamily stuff too. And there's a little bit biased for me, but like there's a stronger case to buy investment properties in Canada if they're multifamily. That's the way I look at it. Like if you're doing commercial like 5+ and you're now dealing with a cap rate, and you can, the cap rate tends to be lower in Canada, so it means the property values are higher, and it's just a numbers game. It makes a lot more sense than buying a house for $500,000 and renting it for $2,000 a month, right? So there's I think it's gotten a lot harder to be a single family home investor in Canada. And it's more, at least if I was looking at more Canadian stuff, that's what I'd be looking at, is more of what you're talking about. Would you say 32 unit? It makes a lot more sense.
23, yeah.
23, whatever.
It's run down. Like I'm picking up for 80,000 a unit. So like the ARV is 160 a unit. So we got a good 100% lift to achieve through renovation, but it's got potential.
And then, like, I'm not going to completely poo-poo on Ontario. You got those terrible landlord laws, but there's a lot of perks. There's lots of perks to this, and the high rent, right, and the low vacancy. Like this place is going to be rented. Like that's one of the reasons we've been looking at Texas for the big multifamilies. Where for those ones, Texas is very, it's similar to Ontario that way, right? But it has better landlord laws. But
what's interesting though, people talk about, and what drew me to Florida initially, at least in part, was the landlord tenant board, right? Drove me out of Ontario in a lot of ways. And it's like, I got to Florida and I have a horror story, man. It took us a year
really
to get someone out of a property bought in Florida. And I thought, the landlord rules are in our favor. Nuh-uh. It took us 6 months to get a trial.
What?
Yeah, we had a squatter living on the land who had owned the trailer that was willed to them by a previous owner 3 owners ago. And we didn't even know they were on the property. We went by, it looked like it was empty, but they're still there. And I guess they come back and forth and they didn't want to leave. And then all of a sudden started inviting friends to stay in the trailer, and they're squatting. No one's paying any rent. There hasn't been rent paid in years. There was an old rent agreement with one of the people from 2019. And so we had to call the old property management company that had gone bankrupt. We're like, can you come and testify for us? This person was a tenant at one point. They say they've been there for 26 years. They have squatters' rights. Apparently that's a thing still in Florida. Even though Florida has some of the strongest landlord rules, it still took us a long time. We're just now getting the order, and we're going to enforce the order to get them off the property. And it took us almost as long as Ontario.
Okay, so what was this you were buying? Was it just a piece of land, or is this like a piece of land with a house that has
piece of land with a house on it, 3-bedroom brick house, but it also had an adjacent parcel that came with it that had like a mobile home trailer thing on it, which looked like derelict, and we didn't even think that there was people still living there.
No kidding.
We're like, okay, we got this bonus little guest suite thing, mobile home. It's got utilities hooked up to it, but anyway, it turns out there's someone living there, and then they invited a bunch of friends to start living there, and it became a problem for us with theft and issues when renovating the main house. And so we're like, hey, you got to get off the property. And the police were like, yeah, we know about this place. Like they've been living here for a while. They claim they're squatters. At one point, they claimed they were tenants. One of the people claimed that they had right to the property because they used to be married to one of the owners 25 years ago, and they had like some old uncontested will. And they brought that up as a defense. It took us 4 months to squash it. Of course, like bogus claims, but she had a free lawyer helping her. And so they just kept bringing motions to delay. It's like, oh, we have a right to the land. Oh, we actually own this trailer. And so like, there's this agreement. And it's like, no, that doesn't hold up. That doesn't, like our lawyer just,
just wasting your time, just dragging it along, right?
Like $3,000 to $5,000 in legal fees in a year fighting, where we're not getting any rent, nothing, to finally get the order to get rid of them. And it's just, I thought it'd be a lot easier, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I've never had to deal with that, but I wonder, like, because you think of all these Ontario tenants, like, would cash for keys be cheaper than the attorney to go and do all this, right? At some October 21st, we are hosting a conference in Mississauga at the Doubletree. We have some amazing speakers lined up: Brady McDonald, Quentin D'Souza, Felix Vortman, Arlen Bonin, myself, Adam Rass, Ali Ajami, Brent Green. The conference is called Canadians Investing in U.S. Multifamily. If you're looking for more information, please go to glennsutherland.com/conference.
We tried to offer that to her. We offered her money. We're like, do you want money to leave? And she's like, no, this is my home. I'm going to stay here. Like, you won't be getting rid of me. And it's like, okay, well, that's not how it's gonna go. But
Yeah.
and we got the eviction order for putting the writ in now for the sheriff to come and
So
remove
if
them.
it's a mobile home, does the eviction mean that they pick up the trailer and take it, or do they leave the trailer there?
The challenge is they've hooked into my septic on the property and my water, and they've connected into our hydro. They've done a whole bunch of, they built some like fence structure thing. Like they've made it their own in certain ways.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so
No kidding.
it's going to be a challenge, I think, if they take it to not do damage, but they could take it in theory, I suppose.
I guess we'll see. When's the order?
How am I going to sue them for the damage, right? Like they're broke. So like anything that happens, I mean, I have no real recourse with poor people.
Wild. Anyway, you mentioned, unless you have more stuff to say about this, you mentioned earlier that you did a mobile home, because you just got mobile home in my head. You turned a mobile home into an Airbnb, or you did something else with a mobile home?
Yeah, so the mobile home, we didn't end up Airbnb-ing it. We thought we might, but we decided to pivot on that. It had an in-ground pool, a guest house that was built on the property. Like it was the most bougie luxury in like central Georgetown, Florida. And it was like the most bougie mobile home I've ever seen. We picked it up for 130. We ended up selling it, I want to say for like 270 when it was done. So we made a good profit on it. It's just, I think we put like maybe 40 or 50 grand. I can't remember. We made a healthy profit. I think with carrying costs and everything, we ended up making like 50 or 60 grand.
That's wild. So, I'm just trying to picture this. So what kind of, paint me a picture. What is it kind of mobile home? Are we talking like an Airstream or like one of those boxier ones? Are we talking?
No, like
it looks like a house.
Yeah, it looks kind of like a house. It's been like permanently mounted.
Like a portable, sort of like a high school portable that's sitting out there? Or
like a high school portable, yeah.
Okay.
We just put like nice skirting on it, cleaned it up.
Yeah.
And it was actually a big, like it had 3 bedrooms in it. So it wasn't a small one.
Yeah.
It was a large unit. And then it had an addition attached to it. So that was another challenge. We were able to, kind of work through and make sure that was tied in properly, but we did all that.
Well, that's cool. The thing I found, because I had one that was even a property that was zoned, what do you call it? Not the property, but it was, now I'm gonna have a brain fart. What was that? It manufactured home, even though it was a full like 2,400 square foot, but it was built in a factory and they brought in transport trucks.
That was this, same as this, yeah.
Yeah.
It was like
I had a heck of a time getting a mortgage for it, right? Like just to because they're like, no, we don't like, a lot of the lenders like, we don't like it. And I ended up having to settle for a 60 loan to value loan. And that was back when Canadians were getting 70 or 75 loan to value. And I had to really take it in the teeth a little bit because just to get that, because I wanted a mortgage. I wanted to rip my money back out of it. Right now, also appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. That's part of what we sold it to, is the financing is very complex on those. And it was like 2 units, right? So it's basically a duplex. So we had a 1-bedroom house. It was on a lot. And then we had the manufactured home, which was like a 3+1 bed. So it was an interesting property. The people who bought it were super happy. They had like 1 horses. They had some land there. So it was kind of cool that for them, it was perfect.
Even how an appraiser is going to look at that, because you could send 10 appraisers and they're going to look at that thing completely different. Some of them are like, there's no value to that, but this has all the value. Some of them are going to say they both have value. Some of them are going to say, I'm going to give you, 60% of what it should be worth because of these crazy reasons. And wild stuff.
It's definitely it's a whole different, setup. Like everything that you knew in Ontario is different in Florida. There's the same principles apply, but everything was just different. Like as an example, the culture was very different for me. There's like a culture shock where like here in Ontario, people were better about honoring their word than I found in Florida. So like I'd have a guy who'd shake your hand, say he's going to show up. And I'm like, just tomorrow gets another job. It doesn't text you. It just doesn't show up. There's a lot of that, like it's more capitalist. And so people are just like out for themselves in a way that it's different in Ontario. Like a contractor here would call me like, yo, I got another job. Sorry, but I'm not going to show up. In Florida, it's just like, don't pick up the phone. Don't respond. It's like, that for me was like people were very out for themselves. You know what I mean? Like they're out to.
I found the same.
And like you'll buy an appliance as an example on Facebook Marketplace. You buy like 2 nice appliances for like $500. And like in Ontario, people will be honest with you, like, oh, it's got like this issue or whatever. Like it works great. These people like, it works great. You get it home and it just doesn't work at all. You plug it in, the wires spraying out of it. We had a situation like that. And I called people back and they're like religious people and just like block my number. Like, what is wrong with people? Like, it's just a different. People are more savage, I guess, in like some of the areas of Florida we were investing in.
What they like to be called is buyer beware, right?
Yeah.
you
the handshake's done. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, no. So you have to be careful. You're buying wholesale stuff, you're buying appliances, you're buying whatever. You gotta they'll if you aren't doing your own due diligence, they'll just take advantage of you. And it's even
Yeah.
like I found I don't even like to when I'm talking to certain people, I'll change my signature line in my on my emails so it cops cut out a Canadian investing in the US, cut out my picture with the logo in the background that says Canadian investing in the US. Let's delete some of this stuff. Let's not they know I'm this far away. I might get it might just raise an eyebrow that maybe we could, there might be an opportunity here to this guy's may not check this, but I'm going to check this, right? I'm going to send somebody down.
Yeah.
So you back in Canada now, or are you down there? Hello, everybody. Thanks for listening to the podcast. I just wanted to let you know that I've created a new coaching program. I believe the new coaching program has way more value than any of the programs that have even existed in the past. What we've done is pre-recorded all the lessons so that you can work through it at your own pace, which is pretty cool. And then we're going to meet up on a regular basis to answer the questions, do deal analysis, and actually spend our time together working on things instead of spending our time learning things. I think this will make a seamless transition to buying in the United States and will help you solve a lot of your problems. If this is of interest to you, go to glensutherland.com/coaching. I hope to help you guys invest in the United States, and I hope we provide as much value as possible. Back to the podcast.
I'm in Canada right now. Yeah, I'll be down there in early October for at least a week, just doing some due diligence on the motel apartment conversion play, and then we're selling a property. So I have if anyone's near Port St. Lucie and wants a full Airbnb 4-bedroom house full of furniture, it's got 2 apartments in it. I got a whole brand new thing of furniture we used to stage, which is probably gonna go in a storage unit, or I'm gonna sell it piece by piece while I'm down there for the week. We'll see. So yeah, that's definitely something I'm dealing with down there. But yeah, I go in the winters, so I don't usually go during hurricane season, or I don't really want to be in Florida during hurricane or rainy season.
I'm going to be down there in October and in November, but hopefully it's not too bad. I think
it should be okay. But like sometimes it gets really bad.
Yeah. So so now that you're back here, and because I know like some people they get I know you're not like this because you're a business guy and you're used to managing a lot of properties, but you're managing now from Canada, you're managing the US, right? You're managing some Airbnbs. It sounds like you're managing some renovation or something at that hotel. How does that look? What kind of like hours is it taking to manage this? Do you hire, property manager? Do you hire project managers? What kind of teams do you need to work this from a distance?
Yeah, you need to have people for sure. You need to have people you can count on. Surprisingly, we hired a realtor to manage our property management in the beginning, and that didn't work out very well. They're more focused on selling houses and less focused on the issues at our property, and so it didn't end up working out very well for us.
I've heard that a lot. They tend to like the idea of getting paid an extra income, but they don't realize that property management is like thankless and a lot of work.
Yeah, it's like it works out like $25 an hour work, right? So it's not like the proposition they were hoping for.
Yeah.
So I think that's the challenge there is like do good due diligence, but so many property management companies are bad. Like I started doing due diligence on some of them, and it's like I hear horror stories and references about like withholding rent for months, marking things up like crazy. So I did a lot of subcontracting for the construction work. Like I got into the Spanish community that comes in out of Miami, like some of the illegals that are not supposed to work with in Florida. It'll be a legal guy, and then he'll have a bunch of illegals working under him, and like whatever he does is his business. I'm just paying him. Yeah. But I get subcontractors in there really cheap. Like I was having a guy do flooring for like under $1 a square foot for labor, and then they were doing we were ordering the flooring out of Miami and by the crate, and for a couple of houses we got it for like $1 something a square foot. I think it was like $1.40 or something a square foot. It was good quality LVP. So there's definitely more opportunity to get good deals down in Florida in a way that you don't get here in Ontario. But it comes with its challenges, right? Like I said, I had several contractors walk out, not without saying anything. Like they're halfway through a renovation, they get a draw and they disappear. And you're like, man, like you're not gonna, finish the job, not gonna give me a text, a warning, nothing, just disappear. And so there's a lot of that going on. Maybe it's because I was hiring like, the bottom half of contractors that were cheaper. Like I was getting guys who are doing $1 a square, right? So those kind of guys, they'll float to the next project. They're not super, super reliable. I did probably $100,000 renovation on one of our properties for like $40,000 45 grand for the renovation itself. So I was getting things done for a lot less than, like if I brought in a full GC company, I would pay through the nose.
Yeah.
So I was saving a lot by bringing in sub trades, but with that, you got to walk behind them. There's a lot of babysitting that has to happen. And so I was reliant on, like, our grass guy was like doing checks for me. Like, I had an independent guy who's coming to cut the grass. And I was like, you just go inside and take videos and stuff. Like, can you just do this and that? So I was like borrowing him while he's there on site. So like be an independent eye.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that, like, that third party eye.
That if anyone caught that was like a golden nugget, right? There was the golden nugget. You said you'd promise a golden nugget. There was the golden nugget. There's a third party eyes to watch the property, not the contractor sending you the photos of his work, because they won't show you.
Not the property manager either, because they can be buddies or not care to do the work.
Yeah, third party. Sometimes the realtor that's going to sell it, because they know that they're going to be like, if you're close to the finish line, and they usually don't want to do this all the way through, especially for free. But if you're close to the finish line, they'll go over and they go, that they haven't like put windows in on one side of the building. You're like, what?
yeah, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, definitely need to involve your realtor. They're like your power teams, your title company. I went to like 5 title companies and played them against each other. Ran a deal. I was like, here's the price, here's all the terms. Can you beat it? And then they would always sharpen their pencil, like. And I'd send it back to the other title company, and they'd be like, oh yeah, we can beat that by 20%. And so I got like 50% off title fees from like initial ask. I was like, man, like some of these title companies are soaking people. And a title company is like your lawyer. You normally use like a law firm in Canada. Everyone uses a title company for closing. So you'd wire your escrow deposit and send it to the realtor. It's always to the title. I've always found in all my deals I've done. It used to, like in Ontario, we do it to the realtor, right? The brokerage, realtor comes, takes a check, brings it to the brokerage, but it's always to the title company, and you get the escrow deposit going right to the title company in Florida. So maybe that's a trust thing. I noticed that a lot of the realtors in Florida are not, like, it's a lot easier to become a realtor in like Florida than it is here in Ontario. It's like a 2-year program now, right? So I think there's just a level of like, I don't know what you want to call it, like integrity. Ethics that just isn't there in the same way. Like they'll lie to your face on a phone call in ways that they won't in Canada. And like every offer, another golden nugget is like, I noticed every offer, they'll have like waivers. Like, we're not liable for all these million things on every deal because they're afraid of being sued, and everyone's sue crazy in the US. So that's the thing that doesn't exist in Ontario. People aren't suing each other. I've been doing business for 11 years in Canada. I've never had a lawsuit ever. And I've had hundreds, probably thousands of sub trades and contractors work for me, and I've never had a lawsuit. And in my 7 deals in Florida, we had 3 potential lawsuits. Like, it's just, everyone's looking for, never came of it. Like, we never luckily had any issues, knock on wood. But just
what kind of lawsuits were there? Like, what kind of things? Is it like liens or what?
No, like people they just threaten it a lot in a way that they don't in Canada. Like, no one ended up going through with anything. And like, one point we had a contractor come with a gun, and like that was a thing that I didn't, like he's like, I'm getting paid, or like someone's getting shot, and like he has a piece tucked into his belt, so like that's a thing that I never experienced in Ontario. It's just, it's different down there because people carry guns. So it's like, imagine an irate contractor, maybe a little bit of drinking, not thinking clearly, a bit behind on the budget, mispriced the job, and they realize halfway through they've mispriced the job, and we have a signed contract, and they're like, well, fuck, or excuse my French, like, oh no, I messed this up. And they're desperate. And it's like, they realize that they signed a contract and they made a mistake. And so they have a choice of like walking away or like trying to take things in their own hands. And like, it's just different down there, more Wild West. Yeah.
I was just thinking about this too, because you just mentioned title companies, right? I'll give some tips too for some people, right? Because they're listening to this. You're talking about shopping around, which I've never actually done the shopping around, but if you're shopping around, it's when you're the buyer. Typically, the buyer gets to pick the title company. A lot of times, the title company does both sides of the closing, which is different than Canada. Usually, it's 2 different lawyers in Canada that do the closings, but it's the same in the US, which seems wild. And then the title companies, they also bid things out differently depending. So sometimes the title company will say, oh, this is our fees, and then they'll make it look really cheap, and then all the state fees and the registration of the deed will all come on as extra things. And other ones, it'll include all of it. So if you are going to shop around, ask them like, hey, what does this include? Does it include all this other stuff, right?
Look at all the stamp,
they'll charge you like $25 for the stamp, and they just have it on the desk. Boom, $25.
Yeah.
So yeah, just
all that stuff. Another thing that was interesting too is a nugget. talking about title insurance companies was I couldn't believe the taxes and the setup fees on mortgages when you go and refinance a property.
Oh
In
yeah.
Ontario, it's zero. It's nothing. There's no tax at all. You refi, you get tax-free cash check. My lawyer could refi a property for $400 here in Ontario because I do all the business with them. So he'll refi for like $400 legal fee, super cheap, maybe $100, $200 in disbursements. A refi in the US is brutal. Like you're talking in some cases on a $400,000 mortgage, like $8,000 in like federal Florida tax. Like you go to do a BRRRR in Florida, and you're like, shoot, there's like $10,000 in fees to put a mortgage on, then refinance it and put another one on. It's like, wow, I didn't realize there were so many taxes and fees. They actually tax the hell out of mortgages. So if you buy in cash in Florida and raise the money privately, it's way cheaper. Like potentially even borrowing at like 12 to 14% is cheaper than doing an 8% mortgage plus all the fees on a short-term project, like a 6-month flip. Because you annualize those fees and it's brutal. That was something that like was not a thing in Ontario, but like taxing the hell out of mortgages in Florida is a thing.
Yeah, well, I hear that all the time from Canadians that go down there because they get excited on the purchase and want to set up a 30-year loan on it. And then it goes up in value, or they did a light renovation and the value went up. For whatever reason, the value went up and they want to do the refi. And they back end load those fees on the 30-year loans. So if you want to break that early, huge fees. You want to, and then you want to set up the loan, you're going to pay fees again, your origination, your title, your underwriting, possibly points, depending on how crazy these title or how crazy the mortgage broker is. Some of them want it, some of them don't. It can really add up. Yeah, I usually say I budget at least $5,000, $5 to $10,000 for just for that.
What's crazy is like because there's like almost a 1% just in government fees, which
that's a state thing. That's going to be state.
That's a state thing, yeah.
That's a
Florida thing.
That's a Florida thing.
But in Florida, it's crazy. Like you're losing a 1% lender fee right there to the government. Then you have another 1% just to the title companies. Then the broker might take a percent. If you're refining, there's more fees. You're talking like potentially the cost of the annual interest for the first year of that loan in fees up front. And if you break that, it's like the BRRRR method does not work the same way in Florida as it does in Ontario. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, I always say that you can do BRRRRs in Florida all day long. That it's state specific. Certain states are going to make it easier for you. Certain states are going to be different. And same things with Ontario, but I think a lot of people like to put the U.S. in like one bucket. But there is states that have
there are states that are
in Canada or than Ontario, right? There are states that have much better ones. They're all different. You got to know what you're trying to buy into. Florida, it is known for having good landlord laws, though. So I will state that. They are usually they're in that bucket of the good ones.
And even I was talking to some lawyers down there and attorneys, and they're like, some of the attorneys were like, yeah, we have like tenants go 6 months without paying before from the start to the end of getting the eviction. It can take sometimes 120 days. And you gotta enact it. So I was like, wow, like I thought it'd be a lot quicker. So there's a lot of horror stories. I post on a forum about my situation, and I had tons of people come out and be like, yeah, it took us like 4 to 6 months to eventually get them out. So I thought it'd be like, out, no pay, no stay. But it wasn't that quick to enforce.
So I've never had any tenants in my Florida property. So far, I've only flipped in Florida. I haven't kept anything. But like in Ohio, it's usually like you got to wait till they're 30 days behind, and then you can file the eviction and you'll have them out.
Yeah, you can file the eviction and start the process.
You'll have them done before the next month. So usually 14 to 30 days after that. So 2 months in total, or 1.5 months to get them out.
I think because the place I was in was kind of like Central Florida. And so I think they just didn't have good court circuits with a lot of good dates. So we were stuck waiting like months to get, maybe if you're in like Miami, you get a hearing in like a month. I don't know. So maybe it would take 2-3 months.
It's also a bigger city. Depends on and that's also that's a good question. If you're going to interview property management, they're going to know this, right? So when you're doing this, you're like, it's not always like, sometimes it's when you're interviewing them, it's about finding out what they can do for you, how their process, how it works between you two. But they also know the market. How long is it going to take to do an eviction here? Because county to county could be different, right? How is this going to work for me if, and the thing is, certain states like New York, every county has different eviction laws. So it's like, some of them it's state legislated, and some states it's county regulated. So you're like, just knowing what you're buying, right? Knowing how you're going to get out of it. It's awesome. Or good advice anyway. Cool. I don't know how long we've been talking. Probably way over I was thinking we were doing the 20-minute. I think we're at the 30-minute, but this was awesome. I think we'll have to do this. Maybe I'll have you back in half a year and we'll talk about something completely different. But
hopefully I got an extra 50 or 100 units by then.
Yeah, exactly. So, Mike, people wanted to reach out to you. They wanted to find you online. How do they find you if they wanted to pick your brain or?
At Mike Rosehart on Instagram, at Mike Rosehart on Facebook. I have the blue check mark for Instagram and for Facebook, so don't follow any imposter accounts. Go for the real deal. RosehartCapital@gmail.com is my email, so I don't know. Hit me up. I'm all over. I'm on Instagram like 10 times a day posting stories. So
awesome. Well, Mike, this was a fun one. Thanks for coming out, and I really appreciate it.
thanks for having me on.
That was a nice video. Bye.